Sahana Bhavatu, Sahano Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavaditamastu, Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beings everywhere. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, beneficence, 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 beneficence be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the final meeting of May. I'd like to acknowledge for those of you who are in the chapel that there is an unpleasant smell. We're doing our best to find out the source of it, so far without results. We are going to have an air conditioning person come in and see if it is something in the ducts. But so far we have not been able to determine why this unpleasant smell is here. And I'm very sorry for those of you who are in the chapel to have to deal with this. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Tomorrow is Memorial Day. On Memorial Day, Swami Swahananda years and years ago started the custom of reading the entirety of Swami Vivekananda's complete works during the Memorial Day. That has been continued and continues now. If many of you have already communicated with me about this, but this is kind of your last chance because this afternoon I will distribute the reading assignments, which are about 20 pages long, that Swami Sarvadevananda sent us. So if you would like one of those reading assignments to read on your own anytime tomorrow, Monday, Memorial Day, just write me an email. Please do write me an email. It's the best way to make sure that I get your communication and respond to it. This afternoon, I will distribute those reading assignments, which, as I say, you read on your own tomorrow, Monday. We continue to meet in the chapel face-to-face and then go into the monastery afterwards for snacks. We're evaluating this from week to week. There is reason for concern, as you all know. There is reason for concern in that the cases of the coronavirus variant are rising here in Georgia. So we'll keep you posted as to whether we're going to remain open for face-to-face meetings. But so far, we are doing that. Again, to those of you who came to the chapel this morning, thank you. And to those of you who are online, thank you for zooming in with us. This morning, we're going to do part 2. Actually, it's a full summary of John Dobson's The Equations of Maya. This is a month for the study of Advaita Vedanta. Last week, we did a rather humorous introduction to that by singing Peter Ustinov's song, Nichevo, 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 which is a funny way of saying nothing, nothing, nothing. And So this week we're going to do something a little more serious, but very Advaitic indeed. And that is read you the lyrics of John Lennon's song, Imagine. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us, only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to live or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. Perhaps someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger, a brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. Imagine by John Lennon. Those lyrics, by the way, will be posted on the YouTube channel on the website, so that if you want to have a copy of those lyrics for yourself, you'll find them there, along with the notes for today's talk. The Equations of Maya according to John Dobson. May has been a month for the study of Jnana Yoga, Advaita Vedanta. As a Jnana yogi, you practice discrimination, reason, detachment, and satyagraha, insistence on truth. The goal is freedom from limitation. Our teachers say that all miseries in life are caused by seeing inaccurately. An earnest and persistent jnani may break through this misperception called Maya and see only the divine presence everywhere, in everything, and everyone. So that's a brief summary of what Advaita Vedanta is. Of course, there are extensive workbooks on the practice of Advaita Vedanta. Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga, Adi Shankaracharya's Viveka Chudamani, the crest jewel of discrimination, are two. This morning we're going to summarize John Dobson's talk on the equations of Maya. The last week, taking time for the congregation's comments and questions, we got through about half of his long discourse on the nature of reality. Afterward, a devotee called to say that John's text, as read nearly verbatim last week, was difficult to follow. It's possible others also felt that same way. This morning, I'll offer a summary of what was covered last Sunday, then the essence of Dobson's talk on how Brahman appears to us as this universe will be interpreted in the hope of being more listener-friendly. John Dobson, just to let you know a little bit about John Dobson, he earned a master's in chemistry from UC Berkeley in 1943. He went on to become a Vedanta monk. Then, having left the monastery, he became an astronomer, a student of human history, and a Vedanta philosopher. At Swami Swahananda's invitation, Dobson lived about the last decade of his life at the Vedanta Society of Southern California's monastery. Swami Swahananda challenged him to equate the findings of modern physics, modern science, and modern physics in particular, with the teachings of the Vedas and the Upanishads. So Dobson wrote, modern cosmologists usually take non-existence for granted and hope to get the universe out of nothing. But must we assume that in the absence of the universe and the absence of space and time, there would be nothing? Or can we, without so rash an assumption, find clues to what might remain instead if we take existence for granted but leave out time and space? Could what remains through apparition or Maya appear as this universe? Can we, from what remains, get a universe of gravity, electricity, and inertia? He bases this equation, an equation being this equals that, he bases this in Swami Vivekananda's assertion, there cannot be two existences, only one. So we have the appearance of Maya on one side of the equation. We have this world of time, space, and causation in which we're very comfortably sitting this morning and enjoying one another's company. And then we have what is said to be behind it, that reality, that absolute reality of Brahman. So Swami Vivekananda says, these cannot be two existences, only one. So Maya is, as it were, a veil or screen through which the oneness, the absolute, is seen as this universe of plurality and change. So how does this happen? John said there are equations within physics that help explain this. What do the Vedantins mean by Maya? First, we know from the Upanishads that it is made of three gunas, tamas, rajas, and sattva. Tamas has its veiling power, rajas has its projecting power, and sattva has its revealing power. Now this language, veiling and revealing, is the language of perception, not the language of manufacture. In order to mistake a rope for a snake, you must fail to see the rope rightly. That's the veiling power of tamas. Then you must jump to the wrong conclusion. In the semi-darkness, you see this rope. It's veiled by tamas, and you jump to the wrong conclusion that it is a snake. That's the projecting power of rajas. You yourself project the snake, but the length and diameter of the rope are seen as the length and diameter of the snake. This is the revealing power of sattva. So in the semi-darkness, this is one of those classic images of how we superimpose the reality we experience on the reality behind we see in the semi-darkness a coiled rope and project on it a snake and react as if the snake is real. But something is real. And so Vivekananda said, we do not move from error to truth. We move, if you will, from lower truth to higher truth. The lower truth is what we project. The higher truth is that it is a rope. So you're seeing the length and diameter of the rope as the length and diameter of the snake. A lower truth replaced by, through correct perception, the knowledge of the rope. What causes this? The question is, why do we see it that way? Why do we feel that we are bound? Why do we continue to make this mistake? Why are we unable to see through the apparition? And that can be answered. On December 14th, 1882, Vijay Krishna Goswami was one of Sri Ramakrishna's direct disciples. Vijay Goswami asked Sri Ramakrishna this question: Sir, why are we bound like this? Why don't we see God? And Sri Ramakrishna answered, Maya is nothing but the egotism of the embodied soul. This egotism has covered everything like a veil. All troubles come to an end when the ego dies. If, by the grace of God, a man but once realizes that he is not the doer, then he at once becomes a Jivan Mukta. Though living in the body, he is liberated. He has nothing else to fear. So we make this error, according to Sri Ramakrishna, because of egotism. What is egotism? Maya is the first cause. As the first cause, Maya, as the first cause, is made of three gunas and consists of seeing the absolute through this veil of time, space, and causation. And we continue to see this because of egotism. So what is this egotism? John Dobson asserts egotism is a genetic invention to keep living organisms alive. Egotism is a genetic invention in order to keep you alive. So before we go ahead with the significance of this, are there any comments or any questions or concerns that this gives rise to that can be addressed? Anything at all you'd like to say? And that includes the people, of course, online. Yes.
Does that mean that's not just human stuff, right? Or is he talking about just human beings?
Everything that breathes. Everything that breathes has this egotism of genetic programming.
So that's basically everything.
Yes.
Except for rocks.
Yes. Well, they don't procreate. They don't, as we know, at least as we understand it, eat.
But have you ever seen somebody with a sledgehammer crack a rock into a million different pieces?
Yes.
Never mind.
Anything? Yes, dear.
Okay, Brother Shankara, how does the egotism apply to the plants? Because I always think
Oh
of
we can't answer that. Although it's clear that plants have karma, we can't really answer how egotism arises in plants. But plants eat to survive, and they procreate. So they
show off.
and they show off. So there is this. There must be, in that sense, some egotism within the plant. But how there is only one consciousness. So this is the assertion. There cannot be two existences, only one. So that if there is consciousness in us and in other things that live and breathe, as plants breathe, they breathe carbon dioxide, but nevertheless they breathe, they eat, they procreate. So consciousness being one arises in them as these needs as well. But they don't seem to be self-aware. This seems to be unique to human beings, that we are capable of being aware of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And so we're able to escape this bondage of egotism. Whereas other living beings, both plants and animals, are apparently unable to do this. It's one of the reasons that it's said that being human is such a grace. Thanks for that question. Anything else from anyone?
Maybe John Dobson is thinking of, like, if you go to a forest, you see all the trees and the things, but some of them try to, because there's a lot of shade, some of them try to, overpower the other ones. And just show it's because egotism is nothing but a survival attitude. Maybe that's what he was thinking.
Well, there may be something to that. I don't know that I ever heard Vivekananda say that, but certainly a botanist would tell you that trees and other plants do compete. They also cooperate very sophisticatedly. Trees in a forest cooperate. And there is a mother tree among a group of trees that directs the activities among the trees. It's really quite remarkable. Whether they are self-aware is a question we can't answer, but it is said that the grace of being human is that we can be aware of these things and thereby find liberation, which is what we're going to be talking about as we go on through this talk. What do the equations of Maya tell us about how to be liberated from this? Sri Ramakrishna said, when the ego dies, it's automatic. But what does it mean to have the ego die? We'll talk about that. Anything else?
I just have one little comment. It's just words and meanings, but it seems to me that that humans are able to reflect on their awareness.
Mm-hmm.
I personally feel like all living things are aware.
Oh, yes.
But they don't reflect on they don't think about their thinking.
Mm-hmm.
We think about what we think.
Yes.
And therein lies
the trap.
The Maya.
Yes.
We all think something different.
Yes, but with these common aims, it seems, the genetic program. Anything else?
Brother Shankara, this is Haima from Denver. As we meditate more and more and follow the Raja Yoga principles, I think egotism gets purified and we see the oneness slowly.
Yes.
And we increase the vibration of our minds as we see, the ego gets really purified.
Yes,
Then,
that's exactly it. The unripe ego, as Sri Ramakrishna says,
yes,
becomes the ripe ego.
exactly. That's
the
what I'm.
the ripe ego dies before the body dies, so to speak. The ripe ego is no longer the ego. The Sri Ramakrishna says, pure mind,
Mhm.
pure consciousness, they are one and the same.
Thank you.
Thank
Just
you.
wanted to comment.
Okay. Anything else from anyone?
I'll say, just briefly, I think, I don't think I even understand my own consciousness in my own mind, much less anybody else's. And when it comes to animals, it's gotta be so different, reading about dogs and their sense of smell. Their sense of smell is so powerful, it's like they're living in a completely different world. Our world, we look out, it's mostly visual. We see the room and the people and so on, and that's my model of reality. A dog's model of reality has so much to do with smell. So I just want, I know kind of what a human ego is like, but I couldn't even really make a good guess about what an animal's ego is like, or an insect's, or if they even have an ego, I don't know. Or if they're conscious. I wonder if insects are conscious, or if they're just little robots, I don't know. It's just kind of a mystery. And it's not particularly important. It's something I'm real interested in, but it's not particularly important to my own personal spiritual path, which is about, why I'm attached and why I suffer and so on.
Very, very interesting comment. And the Vivekananda, at least, and Holy Mother both say that there is consciousness and awareness in these smaller creatures, all the way down to an ant. And so we must be careful not to harm them, just as we would be careful not to harm ourselves or other human beings. Yes, dear.
So one other thing, if there was no ego, then there would be no survival, right? Because just the thinking of the vine that's climbing the tree, if it did not climb the tree, it would not survive.
Well, the great teachers of the world say that you do not have to have this ego to survive. Jesus said, consider the birds of the air. Do they have to worry about what they're going to get to eat? No, they don't have to worry about what they're going to get to eat. Consider the lilies of the field, how gloriously they are clothed. Don't worry about your clothing. And then he said, the Son of Man hath not where to lay his head. In other words, he had no permanent shelter. And that using his model, his example, perhaps you don't need one either. Now, these are ideals. How do we go from what seems to us to be practical to these ideals? But the Buddha also addressed this. Adi Shankaracharya addresses it. Stop worrying about what you're going to get to eat. Stop worrying about what you wear. Stop worrying about other human beings. Just worry about just concern yourself. Turn your attention to what is going to free you. So we have no idea how, as Tom so articulately put it, we have no idea really what the awareness of an animal or a plant is like. There are mystics who say they have some sense of this and actually talk to animals and communicate with them. Talk is probably the wrong word, but communicate with them. There's a wonderful little book called Kinship with All Life that talks about, that discusses in detail how to communicate with other living organisms. It's not in the way that we ordinarily do it, and it's not through the left mind. Anything else? Yes, please.
I have a cousin brother who's an agriculturist, and it's almost magical. Like whenever he touches a plant, I don't know what he does. He just like comes in your home and because you have a garden plant, he just touches it and goes, or he does something and then the plant blooms. I don't know how it happens.
Well, this is a power that is described in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. It is a power that can be developed through concentration. Obviously, this is something that has come to your cousin brother through concentration on what he does. And so, as Patanjali says, these things will bloom in us, will manifest in us. And so you've talked about something that most people would say, oh, that's not possible. Well, Swami Vivekananda says, don't be so sure.
It's interesting that he is not into anything that is spiritual and like maybe some aspects of his life are, I don't know, don't want to judge, but it's sort of inauspicious, but he still has this eye.
Well, this again is described by Patanjali as these development of these powers is considered to be a detour from the spiritual path. But it's not condemned as bad and wrong as long as there is no harm done to others. It's just simply another use of your time, which is so precious. Anything else from anyone? This is the right kind of discussion to have in this
It
context.
is the love that makes all these things, because I know a lot of people, early in the morning they go and they talk to the plants.
Yes.
So I think this is one of those art that
Yeah.
gentleman developed.
Yes. Oh, yes. Definitely. And we can learn a great deal from the natural settings. In the Christian tradition, there are of course the examples of Saint Francis of Assisi, Meister Eckhart. In the Jewish tradition, there is the Baal Shem Tov. You read their life stories and you find that they learned a tremendous amount from the natural world about the nature of reality, what is behind the reality, behind the apparent reality.
Carol, were you wanting to ask a question or speak?
I did.
Hi, hey.
Hello,
Can you hear me,
Carol.
Brother Shankar?
Yes, I can, Carol.
All right, here we go. And I bet you bring this up later. Just right. William Blake. If the doors of perception, I guess being ego, if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear as it is to man, eternal.
Yes, which is exactly why Scrooge says, after his experience of awakening, he says to his clerk, "Oh, Bob, I have not taken leave of my senses. I have come to them. They have been purified." And so he sees what is self-evident. Yes, thank you for that quote from Blake. Would you repeat it, please, Carol?
Sure. If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, eternal.
Yes, exactly. And it is this is becoming the ripe ego rather than the unripe ego, cleansing, purifying our ability to perceive and seeing accurately. So what prevents it? What prevents it? Egotism is a genetic invention to keep living organisms alive. Invention, this is one of the equations that John talks about, though not as not the equations of physics, but the equations that he uses. This invention he equates with prime directives. The prime directives of our genetic programming are to survive get food, clothing, and shelter, and to pass on the genetic line, have children. And the egotism required for the fulfillment of these prime directives is what Sri Ramakrishna referred to as the unripe ego. We see the plurality, the manyness, and the you and me and everything else we experience. We see the plurality, the manyness, the you and me and everything else we experience for the sake of fulfilling these prime directives. We are programmed to eat, breathe, and mate. So the equations of Maya, John goes from this verbal equation to the mathematical or physics equations of relativity and quantum mechanics. And he gives us this summary. These equations, as I see it, are some of the equations of Maya. Einstein's separation equation sets the separation between the perceiver and the perceived as zero. In other words, the dream is in the dreamer. We see the bright star Sirius 8.5 light years away from us by the trick of seeing it 8.5 light years ago. So that's the first equation of Maya in the physics realm that he talks about. Einstein's equations that show that there is no separation between the perceiver and the perceived. In other words, the dream of existence is in the dreamer. We dream that the light of Sirius 8.5 light years away by the trick of seeing it 8.5 years ago. Now, this is one of those things that is difficult to understand. These notes will all appear. The full text of John's talk is online. If you want to explore this more fully, you can go through his and do the Manana, his full explanation of this separation equation. Einstein's more famous equation, E equals mc squared, in which energy is set equal to mass, is another way to say there cannot be two existences, only one. So that's the second of these three equations. Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared, which simply says energy is equal to mass. It's another way to say there cannot be two existences, only one. And Heisenberg's uncertainty principle includes the notion that the observer is always mixed up in what he sees. Now, again, I won't go into the details of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Suffice it to say that the great quantum physicist Richard Feynman, Nobel Prize laureate, said, every statement about quantum physics is merely a restatement of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. But what it means to us is that the observer is always mixed up in what he sees. In other words, the dreamer is dreaming the dream. There is no longer any talk of a universe independent of the observer, any more than there is any talk of an apparitional snake independent of the person who is seeing that apparition. And this is the implication of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Our problem is to reach the goal, to see beyond the screen. You remember that Swami Vivekananda said that the universe is the absolute seen through the screen of time, space, and causation. It's no use asking how the absolute became the universe. The absolute has not become the universe any more than the rope has become a snake. Our problem is to see it straight. And you remember that Sri Ramakrishna said that Maya is nothing but the egotism of the embodied soul. And that is genetic. That is why we feel ourselves to be the doers of action and the enjoyers of its fruits. It is just a genetic mirage. It is just a genetic mirage. The genes have us persuaded that by following their dictates, we can reach the peace of the changeless, the freedom of the infinite, and the bliss of the undivided. They don't have it to give. We don't get the undivided, we get a family. You may have noticed. So at this point, before I read the final pages here, are there any comments or questions that these equations give rise to? Yes, Cindy.
Just Heisenberg about the uncertainty principle, about being mixed up. You know, we can't observe something without being mixed up in it. I mean, doesn't that mean, didn't he also say that, and doesn't that also mean we can't observe something without changing it?
Well, that is part of the findings of quantum mechanics. It wasn't Heisenberg's.
Oh, that wasn't.
No, that was Max Planck.
Oh, that's right.
And Schrödinger. But
So what he meant was,
well, what he actually said was, we can't be certain
right,
of what we see. If we know what something is, we don't know how fast it's moving. If we can determine how fast it's moving, we don't know exactly what it is. And so this attempt gets us all mixed up in the trying to see and figure this out. In order to do what? In order to fulfill our genetic programming. So this is why it's said that Dobson says, that's why we feel like we're the doer and that we're enjoying the fruits of action. Because we're all mixed up in this because of this attempt to know what can't be known. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, that's these three equations that John talks about. And as I say, if you want to know the full details, they're in the talk, in his talk, which was about a 2-hour talk that he delivered in 1993 at the 100th anniversary of the Parliament of World Religions, which was held in 1893, at which Vivekananda became the teacher that he became and stayed here in the West and taught. So John delivered this talk, and it is in great detail. But as the devotee who called said, those details are without the scientific background that John has. It's very difficult to understand them just reading them. So this is why we've done it this way this week. Anything else from anyone?
Greetings, family. How are you?
Yes.
Yes. My name is Aman.
I listen.
Yes, it's my first time visiting this wonderful family.
Uh-huh.
I thank you for the opportunity. I'm excited about it because I teach meditation as well. But and one of the things that that we discussed in my class was superposition. How
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about quantum reality, how,
Mm-hmm.
the observer effect, and how our thoughts, our desires, collapses the waveform into being, into manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I'm hearing from all of you uh, that speak. And so I'm thoroughly enjoying it, never having had a conversation with such a wise group as you all are.
Well, thank you for that. Uh, the wisdom is, as I said, you'll find the full talk, which from your perspective might be a very good use of your time to read it all, because it is absolutely fascinating the way he fully develops these ideas. It's quite intriguing.
And one final comment. We are participators in a universe, in a self-aware universe, is the other thing that I believe is true as well, and may be in tune with with how you're talking about it. Uh, we are participants and not just spectators. That
Oh,
really that really defines the observer effect. That
yes,
that quantum
exactly.
that quantum re,
Ex-
that quantum
ex-
reality is suggesting.
Yes, exactly. This is not being done to us. We are, as you said, participants. Not only participants, we are the generators of this. We, as the one being, the one existence, did this. And it's expressed in the Chandogya Upanishad so simply. I am one, I shall body myself forth. I shall body myself forth as many. And yet the Advaitas say nothing happened at all. Simply the dream of manyness began. And the gunas, which were in perfect equilibrium during that state of I am one, now are in disequilibrium, this dream state of being. They're in disequilibrium and become more and more violently agitated and are at first contained within something called the cosmic egg Hiranyagarbha, which is the first manifestation of Maya, the power of manifestation. But it becomes too violent, it becomes too extreme, and so Hiranyagarbha bursts open, and the result is Jagat, our universe, the universe that we have created out of the desire to become many. This was experienced, apparently fully experienced by Meister Eckhart, the great Catholic mystic and saint, in 1306. He expressed this as there was a boiling in the ground of being, a boiling in the ground of being. And it became so violent. The word in Latin for boiling is bolito. There was bolito in the ground of being. And it became so violent it could not be contained. And so it became ebolito, explosive. It exploded forth. This Meister Eckhart experienced. Ebolito, the way that's metaphorized is, think of a pressure cooker the pressure being so great that it actually blows the lid off the pressure cooker. And so everything goes spraying everywhere. Well, Meister Eckhart was describing in 1306 what the physicists later came to call the Big Bang. And of course, the same thing is expressed in the Vedas as this Hiranyagarbha bursting open. And what emerges is the seeds of all creation as Jagat. So these are not new ideas. But the fact that we are that which is doing this. If there cannot be two existences, only one, we are part of that one existence. We are that one existence. So we have just a few minutes left. I'll read the rest of this, and then we can continue our discussion. Yes, dear.
Would you mind just rereading what Dobson was saying previously? The last thing you said, if the last quote of his, I don't know if you can go back that far.
Well, what about what subject? What is
Well,
this?
It's the one that ended with the family.
Oh, all right.
That paragraph. If you could.
This egotism is why we feel ourselves to be the doers of action and the enjoyers of its fruits. It is just a genetic mirage. The genes have us persuaded that by following their dictates, we reach the peace of the changeless, the freedom of the infinite, and the bliss of the undivided. They don't have it to give. We don't get the undivided. We get a family. You must have noticed. John had a very wry sense of humor. I knew him. He was a wonderful, wonderful, gentle, great man. So he talks, this is part of his saying, the problem is to reach the goal. This is a journey from one point of view to another. This is a journey from one point of view to another. That is why it is so often referred to as an inner journey. It is a journey from an erroneous point of view, dictated by the genes, to a point of view from which we can see through that genetic mirage. Swami Vivekananda said that science and religion will meet and shake hands. I think that time has come. So I'll read that last again. That's his final statement. Solving this problem is a journey. Solving our problem is a journey from one point of view to another. That is why it is often referred to as an inner journey. It is a journey from an erroneous point of view, dictated by the genes, to a point of view from which we can see through the genetic mirage. Swami Vivekananda said that science and religion would meet and shake hands. I think that time has come. In other words, these equations of Maya are indications that science and religion, as it's being described, are meeting. And that's why about 2 years ago, Scientific American published an article, the title of which is, Does Consciousness Pervade the Universe? Does consciousness pervade the universe? The quantum physicists and other scientists are, because of their absolute scientific method, are coming to the conclusion, reaching the conclusion that that is the only explanation for why there can be what Einstein referred to as spooky action at a distance. 14 billion light years apart. If one electron goes spin up, 14 billion light years away, the other electron goes spin up. But that's because of this no separation. The equations that Einstein came up, no separation between the observer of the one electron and the other. The separation is zero. The dream is in the dreamer. We see Sirius as 8.5 light years away. We see the star Sirius as 8.5 light years away by the trick of seeing it 8.5 years ago. So these are the equations that John is talking about. Einstein's equations, Heisenberg's. If you go into the article in its full, you'll see what is being gestured to here this morning. Anything else from anyone? Yes?
Do you know if John Dobson in that full text covers entanglement?
Not as such.
Because Pim von Lommel talks about all this and all these guys, and I can't remember who it was that talked. Entanglement is that what you were talking about?
Spooky action at a
Spooky
distance.
action. It's
Yes.
like, and they actually took cells from a human being
Right.
that they could keep alive, just the cells in a petri dish, and then whatever it was, 1,000 miles away, they showed emotion generating images to this person, and the responses that his cells had were immediately had 1,000 miles away or however far.
Yes.
In this petri dish by his cells that were being kept alive, and that's that entanglement that every.
Yes.
I love
Yes.
the word. 'Cause
Yes. Oh, she mentioned this man, Pim van Lommel, a Dutch cardiologist that began to study consciousness. It started with the study of near-death experiences, but it grew far beyond that. And he has a book about it. I don't remember the title. It has the word consciousness in it.
Life beyond, no, consciousness beyond life.
Consciousness beyond life. And it talks about this entanglement, which is a fundamental principle of quantum physics. And it has been tested and tested until finally now there is a absolutely definitive test that is accepted by all of these scientists. It can't be controverted because science is so perfect. It's called Bell's theorem. Not that the man who did it was named Bell. He was working for the Bell Laboratories when he did it. So Bell's theorem. And I just saw a video not long ago, some 3-4 weeks ago, something like that, in which a quantum physicist stood there and did this kind of experiment that Pim van Lommel is talking about. It didn't have to do with live cells, it had to do with something else. I don't remember the details exactly, but you can look it up. You can find this video. Quantum physicist Bell's theorem, it'll come right up. And he stood right there, and in a half an hour's time, he demonstrated it, he proved it. That his expectations governed the results of something, I forget how many miles away. And there was no, anyway. So this is all science and religion. What is said in the Vedas, what is said by Christ, turn over a rock, I am there. Split a piece of wood, I am there. Omnipresent. We too are omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. It's just that we don't know it. Anything else from anyone, please?
Carol again, Brother Shankara.
Yes, Carol.
It is you that taught me this. Is this Meister Eckhart that said, the center of the circle is everywhere. The circumference of the circle is nowhere.
Yes. Yeah.
I find that to be a really nice little mind lollipop as we talk about this. As the mind attempts to dissolve the apparent separation, which it won't do if I understand you correctly. Mind just, it will not do it. And so Meister Eckhart, if it was Meister, reached us with those type suggestions, even though that's a thought. It allows you to have the thought of the circle of the edge of the universe, if you will, but then dissolves it by saying the center is everywhere, or there's nowhere the center is not.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And Swami Prabhavananda remarked, speaking of the left mind, he said, trying to grasp reality with the mind is like trying to empty the ocean of consciousness with a teaspoon. Trying to grasp reality with the mind is like trying to empty the ocean of consciousness with a teaspoon. The left mind is simply not up to the task, which is why all of these things that we're saying are simply pointing at the mark, pointing at the goal. We have to do the work, which is, as Dobson pointed out, an inner journey. This new fellow, I think he said his name was Aman.
Yes.
He said, you know, this is the journey. This is the dispelling of the mirage is the journey. This is why meditation. This is why we turn inward, because in that silence, what we're pointing to is found. And when it is found, it cannot be put into words. So words are simply a way of gesturing toward it.
Yes. If I may speak again, yeah, we must go inward to actually be aware of what's out there, because
Yes.
we are participators and not just spectators. And the other mind candy that I'd like to share is that you are the dreamer dreaming that you are you know.
Yes.
So we really, once we move into our inner space, we realize that that it projects everything that is manifested in the here and now and before and after. In fact, it is timeless.
Yes, indeed. And you can hear it in music. If you listen to John Lennon's song Imagine, it will move your heart. And I have a recommendation for any of you who are Bob Dylan fans and are not aware of his latest album, which is already 2 years old, but nevertheless, that's very recent. It's called Rough and Rowdy Ways. And it has some absolutely compellingly beautiful songs, like Make My Own Version of You, which is it starts off through summers and into February. I've been going to mosques and monasteries, looking for the necessary body parts, limbs and livers and brains and hearts to make my own version of you. And then his song, I've made up my mind to give myself to you. From Salt Lake City to Birmingham, from East LA to San Antonio, I don't think I can bear to live my life alone. I've decided to give my life to you. These are beautiful, beautiful songs, speaking to exactly what we've been talking about today. So it's wonderful to see this great man, this Nobel Prize laureate in literature, at 78, 79 years old, which is what he was in 2020, producing this great album. I recommend it to everyone. There's some very funny songs on it too, like Goodbye, Jimmy Reed. Anything else? Yes, dear.
Just wanted to bring it back around to Imagine, John Lennon's Imagine, which you read the lyrics to earlier. I see that song as, talking about, religion, spiritual practices, cultural morals, and that sort of thing. They're all to get us to see more and more and more clearly. But ultimately, it's to go beyond those, to go beyond religion, which is what John Lennon is talking about in that song.
Yes.
And
no religions too.
right. I mean, if everybody saw clearly, of course, we'd all disappear, but we know about that too.
Well, this is apparently what happens in the Satyu. We disappear as corporeal human beings, we ultimately, in the height of the Satyu, exist again as our subtle bodies, not these gross mechanical bodies. Anything else from anyone? Well, dears, this has been, what we're here for. Thank you very much to those of you who came to the, yes, Lori.
Sorry, this is kind of like a little announcement, but I've been meaning to send the link to you, but Spirituality and Practice is a wonderful website. They do a lot of
Spirituality and Practice.
And practice. They do a lot of interfaith e-courses. And it's already started, but it's an interfaith course. And Swami Atmarupananda is a part of it, and Cynthia Bourgeot, and the Helminskis, and the rabbi who came here, and what's his name? I can't remember his name. The wonderful rabbi.
The one, I don't remember his name either.
Glick.
Rabbi Glick, yes.
No.
His books are on the shelf.
Well, I think somebody else.
We've had more than one rabbi come here.
Rabbi Rami also.
Yes, Rami.
Ah,
Swami Rami,
yeah.
Rabbi Rami.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So just to let people know that if they're interested.
Okay, Spirituality and Practice. It's a website. Visit as you are moved. Anything else from anyone? All right. Let there be peace in outer space.
Let there be peace in outer space.
Let there be peace in the sky, on the earth, and in the waters.
Let there be peace in the sky, on the earth, and in the waters.
Let there be peace in the herbs, the plants, and the trees.
Let there be peace in the herbs, the plants, and the trees.
May the gods be peaceful.
May the gods be peaceful.
May the whole universe be pervaded by peace.
May the whole universe be pervaded by peace.
Let that infinite universal peace prevail throughout my being.
Let that infinite universal peace prevail throughout my being.
Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Beneficence, beneficence, beneficence be unto us all and to all beloved beings everywhere. So, for those of you who joined us here in the chapel, again, thanks for coming. And in the monastery, you'll find that there's coffee and tea and some snacks. So please join us there if you're so moved. And for those of you who are with us online, so glad you came. So glad you participated. So good to hear your voice, Carol Hornsey. So with that, we'll close our meeting for today. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. May we go forward in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. Jai Ma, Jai Ma.